Hello everyone, and welcome to another tutorial on WP Omaha. This is Rob Ruiz, and today we're going to be taking another look at how to easily make dynamic blocks with Gutenberg and the Create Block package. The goal here is to show people an alternative way of creating PHP-based Gutenberg blocks without having to use ACF Pro all the time. With that said, before we jump into it, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to this channel so that you can see future videos that I put out. I will be showing lots more about Gutenberg block development here in the future, so stay tuned. First, let's take a look at the Create Block package on the WordPress developer resources. Last week, I showed you a way to use the template system built into Create Block, this right here, to use a NPM package template to generate a new block with Create Block, which basically kind of works like this right here. And so although that method does work, I wanted to show an alternative way to creating a dynamic block that wasn't even possible until like 3 months ago. Now, just so everyone knows, I was aware of this other method when I created the last video. However, I could not get it to work, and so I didn't show how to do it that way. I showed how to do it the template way. Plus, I wanted to learn how to create these templates. Now that I've figured out why it wasn't working, if you look down here where it says variant, you can see that there's an example of how to use a variant, and this example actually uses a dynamic variant, which is exactly what we're going for. So before we get into it, let's just make sure that we're in the correct directory. So you don't want to be in your local environment where you're developing this block. You don't want to make sure that you're in your plugins directory, because this npx command will create a plugin and a block in that plugin. So just make sure you're just in the root of the plugins directory. I'm just going to paste in this npx create block command, and then we do need to make sure we pass it the name of our block. You do need to make sure that you go between where it says create block and where it provides the variant option, and provide it a name for your block. In this example, I'm going to just call this variant block example, and then I'm just going to hit enter. So it's going to reach out to the repo. It's going to grab all the files. It's going to install the npm packages, and basically just get Node all ready to go so that when you start editing the source code for your block, it actually builds all your stuff. All right, now that our block is made, we just need to cd into the directory for the block. And then you just need to run an npm run start so that any changes that we make to the block itself will automatically get updated by Node. So now Node is running in the background, and it is watching all of our files for changes, so that when we make changes in our code, we can just go refresh over here and see those changes. If we go ahead and open up the main PHP file for the plugin, you'll see all the usual stuff in terms of like what the comments need to be for a regular WordPress plugin. And then you can see we've just got like a few lines down here of how to essentially register our block from the build directory. Now, I do want to point out specifically this build directory right now. We're going to be changing this later when we get to the part of this where we talk about how to create multiple blocks within this one plugin. But for now, just know that right out of the gate, it creates everything exactly the way we need to. So let's just jump over to our plugins area of this local environment. And now let's just go ahead and activate our variant block example. And let's go ahead and refresh our page over here. Okay, and now let's add our block. Just going to type in variant. Here you can see variant block example. We just add that in. And here you can see we've got the regular create block kind of standard default starter content here. what I do like about using the variant is I love that, first of all, it heavily relies on block.json, and block.json now supports the ability to point it to a render function, or a render PHP rather, and you can add all of your PHP right in this render.php, and it will automatically read from this, and essentially this makes it so that you don't need to do what we did in the last video in regards to like having to create a standalone function that it reads from. It'll just automatically read from this file. Now, what's interesting is that we'll go and change what this says a little bit, and I'll show you guys one of the things that I don't like about this. So I'm just gonna say hello WP Omaha fans, and I'm going to save this. All right, so here you can see on the front end it says hello WP Omaha fans, but on the back end, if we refresh over here, you can see it says hello from the editor. So why did it change only on the front end here when we changed our render.php and not in both places? Well, let me show you. So if we go look in our edit.js for our block and we go down here, you'll notice that the text of like what to render in the editor just gets statically populated in here by this code. And so here you can see it says hello from the editor. So in order to see that same thing in both places, we would have to make the same exact changes to our render.php and our edit.js. And that's not entirely necessary. So I'll show you a little tweak you can do to this variant to make it so that when you change anything in this PHP file, it'll reflect in both the editor and on the front end. All right, so the first thing that we need to change about this variant block example edit.js is we need to import some of our data from the block.json to make it a little cleaner when we tell Gutenberg about the name of our block. So we're going to dynamically pull that in from the block.json so it's not hard-coded into this JavaScript file. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import a very specific component from the @WordPress React component library, and it's called ServerSideRender. What this component will do will exactly what it says. It's going to server-side render the whatever you tell it to server-side render, essentially. So now that we have our server-side render component imported, we can go ahead and use it down here in our edit function. And so I'm just going to replace this part right here where it statically writes in the content for the block in the editor. We're going to replace this with our server-side render component, and then we just need to pass the block name. And so this is why we imported the name from block.json, so that we don't have to hard code that in here. It just automatically gets it from block.json. So if we change the name of stuff in block.json, it'll automatically update here. So it's just a smarter way of doing that. So now if we save this and let Node rebuild our code real quick. All right, so now we can go over here and refresh. And now you can see it says hello WP Omaha fans instead of the hard-coded stuff what it said before. So now if we go in here and change this again to hello WP Omaha fans in all places, and we save this, and we let Node do its thing again, and we refresh over here, now you can see it says in all places at the end of this, and if we go to the front end and check that, it says in all places here. So now if whatever we change in this render.php file, it will show that in both the editor and wherever the block is used on the front end of WordPress. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at what it looks like when we want to create multiple blocks within a single create block plugin. So we're just going to go from where we are right now. As you can see, we've got a source directory here, and inside of that source directory are all the different files for just this one block right here. We're going to need to move these files, and then I'll show you what the result is of that moving. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into our source directory here, and I'm just going to create a new directory. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a directory specifically for our block. And we're going to move the block that we currently have into there, and then we're also going to create an additional block. So for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this like variant block example, because that's the name of that block, and we'll want to differentiate this block from the other block. Cool. So now, instead of just having all of our files right inside of the source directory, we're actually going to move these files. After we move these, we're going to go in from the source directory, like right in the root of the source directory. We're going to create a new file, and we're just going to call this file index.js. And inside of this index.js, we need to import essentially the whole directory for that other block. Just like that. So what that'll do is that will tell Node, when it reads index.js, it'll know, okay, I have to go and like import this entire other directory. And then I'm going to show you guys what that does to our build directory. Because remember, the build directory is what WordPress actually reads from. It doesn't read from anything in the source directory. The source directory is just for us as developers to get everything built the way that we need it to. All right, so now if we look up in our build directory up here, now we can see that we have a subdirectory in the build directory that kind of mirrors the directory that's in the source directory. Now, I did have to go down here and do a Control-C and terminate the npm start server and restart the server manually in order for it to generate this directory in the build directory. So just keep in mind, like if you're going to do a lot of moving around of blocks and directories and stuff, you will need to do that. You'll need to restart the Node server. Now that we've done that, you can see we're building all of our stuff here and we're importing here, which is great. And we've got all of our block logic is in here, but we do need to do one other thing before WordPress knows about our block in its current configuration. So if we go over here and refresh, you can see it says, oh, it doesn't, our site currently doesn't support that block because WordPress is not finding the block and the block.json and all that. And that's because it's no longer right in the build directory. It's in this subdirectory in the build directory. So we need to go into our plugin, the main plugin PHP file, and we need to change where we're registering the block from. So you can see right here, it's looking like right in the build directory for all of those files. And we know that's the wrong place now. So we need to go change this to have a slash at the end of build, and then we need to give it the directory for the block that it's now building. So now that we've said don't look just right in the build directory, look inside the variant block example subdirectory of the build directory. Now, if we save here and then we go refresh over here, you can see our block comes back. So now it knows about our block again, and now we are ready to add additional blocks into this plugin. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to show you both ways right now. So I find that the easiest way for me to do it is I can just go and create a new directory, and I'm going to call the directory whatever I want my block to be. So I'm just going to call this like additional custom block. Okay, so here you are. Now we've got two directories inside of the source directory. And then I'm just going to copy all of these files in the variant block example up to our additional custom block. And I'm going to paste them in there. Now, we do need to make sure we do a couple of things right after we do this paste. The most important thing that we need to do in here is in the block.json, just go give it a different name because it's got the name from the other block in here. So we need to just change it to like additional custom block. And then same thing up here. Additional custom block. And then we can leave all the rest of this. I mean, we could go in here and say like, okay, copy this and put it down here in our text domain if we want. and all that. But yeah, and obviously if you're going to do this in real life and make real blocks, you should go and like thoroughly fill out all of the details about your block in here, like the description and everything. I'm not going to do that right now because we're just mainly focused on getting this other block to work. So now what we're going to do is inside of our render file, I'm just going to change the text in here so that we know the difference between our two blocks. And then I'm just going to call this additional block example, second block of library. And then I'm going to, in the domain, I'm just going to change this to additional custom block, which you don't really need to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. We need to go into our index.js in the root of the source directory, and we need to import our new directory that we just created with our new block in it. So I'm just going to duplicate this line, and then I'm going to change this to point at the other directory, which is called additional custom block, and save this. And I don't know if I need to do this or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and restart my Node server again. So that I know for sure it's like grabbing that new directory and building everything properly. Now we do have one last thing that we need to do after we import the directory. We need to actually go into our plugin file again, and we need to register that block. Right now it only knows to go register the variant block example here. So if we just duplicate this line and then we point it at that other directory, just like we did the import, and save, and then we'll go refresh over here in our editor, and then we'll try to find our block. And there you can see additional custom block is right there, and as you can see it says exactly what we expected to say, which is additional block example, second block of library. And if we click update here and we go look at the front page, you can see it's showing up in both places and it's pulling the PHP from both of those. And now we have two blocks in one plugin, and we can keep following this pattern as many times as we need to. So let's review exactly what that pattern is. When we want to create a new block, we just right click, new, create the directory. We go into another existing block, we copy all of the files from there, put it into our new block, change all the block.json stuff. Then after that, we need to go to our index.js in our source directory, and we need to import that whole directory so that Node can do everything it needs to do to build our new block. And then the final step is to go into our main plugin file and just use register block type and register the block in PHP. And then you're done. And then you've got a new block. So if you just repeat that 3-step process every single time you want to make a new block, you'll be able to easily create as many dynamic blocks as you want, all within this one plugin. Now, I did tell you guys I was going to show you another way to create these subdirectories in here, or create these additional blocks within the block library. If we go over to create block, you'll notice this example down here that talks about this option that says no plugin. And it says right here, with this argument, the create block package runs in no plugin mode, which only scaffolds block files into the current directory. Now, I tried this earlier, and you might assume that you just need to be inside of your block plugin and then run that code. That's not actually the case. You need to actually cd into the source directory, and then you need to run it from in here. So let's just go ahead and give this a try so we can demonstrate this. And then this one, I'm just going to call it block number 3. Hit enter. And now if we go in here and we look in our source directory, we'll see block number 3 is in here. And you can see we've got all of our block files in here. It just made a static block in here. So let's go ahead and just see what happens if we try to specify a dynamic block. So I'm just going to go in here. We're going to say block number 4. And then I'm going to give it the variant argument or option. And let's see what happens. All right, so now we have block number 4 in here. And as you can see, it contains all the stuff we would expect it to have, including our render.php file. Once again, let's go ahead and follow that pattern. So we didn't have to copy and paste anything, so we don't have to go change our block.json because it automatically made all those. It automatically made our block.json file the way that we need it to be made. So now all we need to do is go into our index.js, which is the second step, and we're just going to tell it about our block number 4. And then we're going to go into our main PHP file for the plugin and duplicate this line. And okay, and we do need to make sure we run npm start again so that Node can automatically create all of the proper files in that build directory. And then now if we go ahead into our editor and we refresh this page, we should now see block number 4. And here it is, block number 4. So we can copy files and change what's in the files, or we can use that npx command to have it automatically create a new directory with our block.json that follows the naming conventions of our block and all that. Either way works. The only downside I see to running the npx command to create the subblocks is that A, you have to make sure you're in that source directory, and B, you also have to make sure that after you run the npx command, you run an npm start again from the command line so that the Node server can build everything in the build directory again. All right, everyone, that's it for now. Stay tuned for the next video we're going to make, and I'm going to show you all how to take these dynamic blocks and add some custom attributes and some custom fields into Gutenberg to control those attributes. So again, make sure you like and subscribe to catch that video, and thank you all for watching.